All right, good evening. This is the Historical Preservation Commission, and today is Monday, September 15th, 2025. And we'll do a roll call, please. Sorry. Do we start over?
Recording in progress.
Do we start over? Okay.
Take two.
Take two. This is the Historic Preservation Commission, and today is Monday, September 15th, 2025. And we'll have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Beauchamp, Commissioner Berg,
Here.
Commissioner Haley,
Here.
Commissioner Keller, Commissioner Whiddon,
Here.
Commissioner Wilt.
Here.
Thank you. Looking at our agenda this evening, we'll have an approval of our agenda unless anyone has a change.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we have our minutes from our lots of meetings, February, March, April, July, and August. That we need approval for unless anyone has changes that they'd like to see.
Not a change. The only thing I was wondering about the special meeting from last week. There's no minutes from that.
I don't think we have them yet. If we're just getting these, I don't think those are in yet. That'd be a pretty fast
all
turnaround.
caught up.
No, I think these are just ones that we didn't have earlier. So that will be coming.
I'd like to make a request to approve the minutes of the prior meetings listed on the agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any public comments on items that are not on our agenda this evening? Do we have anyone online? Can you tell? Doesn't look like we do.
There are two individuals online.
Okay. Do you want to raise their hand?
Nobody's raising their hand, but you're
Alright.
welcome to, people online.
All right. We'll move on to probable cause for 1013 Lafarge, and we'll have a staff report.
Good evening. This application is for probable cause at 1013 Lafarge Avenue. This property is located at the intersection of South Street and Lafarge Avenue. As you know, probable cause is how the HPC approves grants for historic structure assessments, and landmarking is the criteria used to evaluate probable cause, which is in section 15.36.050 of the Louisville Municipal Code. And the HSA grants cover up to $7,500 in this case for residential properties. These are non-matching and the grants are reimbursed. 1013 Lafarge appears to have maintained its historic footprint from 1948, possibly earlier. The photo on the left is from the Boulder County Assessor Card from 1948, and the photo on the right is from present day. 1013 Lafarge was sampled in the Paleo West Stories in Place residential context, where it was recorded as having a very distinctive pyramidal or hipped roof on the main portion of the house, with a smaller front gabled room or entry on the side. This report noted that these types of homes are underrepresented in Barclay Place, and 4 of these homes are located on the same block, including 1013 Lafarge. It was also surveyed in the architectural inventories that Paleo West completed, but was not included in the 2000 Colorado Cultural Resource Survey. So in analyzing the landmark criteria, this property is approximately 119 years old. Its social significance includes Italian immigrant history and ownership of 2 prominent families in Louisville over a 120-year period. And it does have physical integrity, demonstrated by its distinct pyramidal hipped roof cottage and small gabled front projection. And it has maintained its original footprint from 1948. So as the property meets the landmarking criteria, staff recommend finding probable cause and approval of $7,500 toward an HSA. This concludes the staff presentation. There isn't an applicant presentation tonight, but I'm available for questions, and the applicant is as well.
Any questions for staff? All right, thank you. All right, and you said the applicant doesn't have an actual presentation?
No.
All right. And any public comments for this property?
Share a spot with you.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Thank you. Andy Johnson, DAJ Design. I'll give an applicant little thing. I'm joined by the owner, Craig Thompson. I mean, you probably are wondering why I even need to say anything. This is kind of a slam dunk. It's a beautiful house. It's super original. 2 owners, super long time family ownership in this structure. I've been in the house. This one is pretty special. It's got a lot of original interior as well as exterior, which is really rare. And it speaks to, you know, the short tenure, or sorry, not tenure, but the short list of owners. Prior to tonight, we actually did a geotechnical study on the soils in anticipation of foundation repairs or addition project. We're not really sure what that looks like yet, and that probably won't come until maybe like another year. But it is interesting to see our soil profiles that we can get into at another date that has an effect on why foundations built the way they are in Louisville get affected sometimes so drastically. So anyway, something to unpack for later. I think it's good information for the HPC to know. As Jess mentioned, I'm also available to answer any questions if you have any, as I'm sure staff will be as well. So,
All right, thank you. All right, no other comments from the public? Then we'll bring it back for discussion with the commission.
I think this house meets our criteria for an HSA. I think it's obviously has the age criteria, the physical integrity is wonderful to see, and the social history. So I think it's, you know, kind of a nice fit for our program.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's a lovely home and it's remarkably intact. So I think it's sort of an ideal candidate. All right, I was going to say it's a lovely home and it's remarkably intact. So it's sort of an ideal candidate.
I agree. I went by it and looked at it from the outside, and I was surprised what good condition it looks from the outside. And I think Andy started off his statement by, why am I even up here to say anything? But Andy likes to talk, so. But no, I'm fully in favor of it.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the HSA for 1013 Lafarge.
I'll second.
And we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Haley,
Yes.
Chair Haley, Commissioner Whidden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
Yes.
All right.
Congratulations. Step 1.
So staff will be in touch with next steps, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. All right, then our next public hearing is for 1155 Pine Street, and we'll have a staff presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Emily Klein Gibson, Planner 2, with the staff presentation. The request tonight is for a series of applications for the property at 1155 Pine Street. This property is located at the eastern end of Pine Street, east of downtown Louisville, south of the Minersfield neighborhood, and west of Highway 42. Requests for the property include 4 structures: the historic home called the Miners Mansion, which is shaded in blue, a future relocated home that will be attached to the Miners Mansion by a subterranean breezeway called the Haven, which is shaded in green, and 2 existing rail cars sitting on train tracks. The front rail car that's located closest to Pine Street is called the Caboose, and it's shaded in purple. And the box car located in the back is called the Stein box car, and it is shaded in orange. This slide provides a summary of each of the applicant's requests as well as staff's recommendation. The requests include landmark designation for the Miners Mansion, an alteration certificate for the property, restoration and rehabilitation grants for the Miners Mansion of up to $194,178, a new construction grant for the Haven House of $15,000, extension of the probable cause request for the Caboose, landmark designation for the Caboose, restoration and rehabilitation grants for the Caboose of up to $77,150, and probable cause approval for the Steinbox car. Staff recommendation for each item can be found to the right on the screen and will be summarized again at the end of this presentation. Each request will be grouped by structure, starting with the historic home, which is again called the Miners Mansion. Requests for the mansion include landmark designation, an alteration certificate, and restoration and rehabilitation grant funding of up to $194,178. Building conditions over time can be found on the right. Notable changes include rear additions, changes to the historic window openings, and changes to the front porch. The overall form has remained the same. When considering the landmark criteria, the mansion meets the age requirements as it is approximately 100 years old. It has also maintained its national architectural form and remained in its original location since construction. There are some social ties as the home being used by coal miners. However, the social history is not as significant as the architectural. So with the age, architectural significance, and physical integrity, staff finds the landmark criteria is met. There is an active planned unit development land use application for exterior changes to the property that is currently under review. So some alteration certificate requests are for work in accordance with the PUD, and other requests are for restoration and rehabilitation of the historic home. The alterations include lifting and relocating the historic building to the east approximately 5 feet, allowing an addition to the existing building, which would be the Haven House in the rear, replacement of windows throughout the building to match the historic openings in window style, allowing for a larger window configuration on the front facade, replacement and restoration of the trim and siding throughout the house, and replacement of a historic awning above the front door, and finally allowing a subterranean breezeway and deck to connect the historic building and the building addition. This slide provides a visual of the alterations to the facade of the historic building, which include new window openings, siding to match historical photos, and reconstruction of the front porch. This also provides another visual of that subterranean breezeway that would be connecting the historic home to the relocated home building addition. There are 2 new window openings proposed on the front of the building to accommodate design standards that were related to the active land use applications. However, staff recommends that the original window openings be retained and no further window openings be created on the front. Restoration and rehabilitation grants are requested for the historic building. Updated cost estimates were received for some items following the publication of the staff report and have been provided in this table, columns 1 and 2. The updated cost estimates provide pricing for the entire site, including work for the building addition and breezeway. So staff analysis includes reducing each total estimate that's provided in column 1 by half to get a general estimated cost for just the mansion. And then that number is located in column 2. The estimates were then halved again to get an estimated grant matching cost, which is found in column 3. Exact costs for work relating to just the Miners Mansion building will be allocated at the time of grant reimbursement. This is, again, just an estimate based on cost estimates and the applicant's personal estimation of costs. Up to $44,178 is requested in extraordinary circumstances. However, staff do not find unique conditions on the property that warrant extraordinary circumstance funding. Staff recommends approval of all line items up to $150,000, which is the commercial maximum grant amount, aside from the house relocation item, which staff does not find to be related to preservation, restoration, or rehabilitation work. And staff also recommends a condition that clarifies all reimbursement funds will be for the Miners Mansion only and no other areas on the property. The relocated building addition, which is again named The Haven, is eligible for a new construction grant. The applicant has requested $15,000 in new construction grant funds for exterior work and the relocation of the building. However, the property is eligible for up to $75,000 in non-matching new construction funds as the property is commercial. Staff finds the building addition appears physically detached from the historic building and in accordance with the PUD application will preserve the mass, number of stories, and historic integrity of the main building. The third structure is a rail car called the Caboose and has the following requests: extension of the probable cause request, landmark designation, an alteration certificate, and restoration and rehabilitation grant funds of up to $77,150. A present-day image of the Caboose can be found to the right on the screen. No historical imagery of the exterior of the Caboose could be located, so an illustration that was used in a restaurant advertisement is provided. This illustration is from the 1970s. The first request for the Caboose includes requesting an extension of the probable cause approval. The Caboose originally received a finding of probable cause at the December 18, 2023 regular HPC meeting, but the commissioners conditioned the approval to expire on November 27, 2024, at which time the applicant would need to re-request approval for HSA reimbursement funds. The HSA has since been completed, and staff recommends the approval be extended. The primary reasoning behind the original finding of probable cause was to gather more historical and structural information on the Caboose, which staff finds the HSA has provided. The applicant is next requesting landmark status for the Caboose, and staff finds that although the age and physical integrity of the structure meet landmark criteria, the social significance of the structure as it relates to Louisville's history is limited. The Caboose is most directly related to Louisville's history when it was used as a restaurant for about 25 years, starting in the 1970s. The structure has since been moved from its original location and no longer serves the same use. Following the closure of the last restaurant used in the Caboose around the 2000s, the structure did not further contribute to Louisville's social heritage. If landmark status is granted, an alteration certificate and grant applications are included with the request. Based on staff review, some of the alterations may have already been completed, but the following are included with the request, which include replacement of all the wood elements on the entire Caboose using historically appropriate cedar or Douglas fir lumber, installing 18 windows and 2 doors in the original openings. There are currently no windows on the structure. Reconstruction of a catwalk along the Caboose roof to historical accuracy, installing original smokestack on the roof, installing 3 ladders, and installing historically accurate corner lamps. And if landmark status is granted the Caboose, grant funds will also be available. Restoration and rehabilitation grant funds are awarded to a property as a whole and not individual structures. So any grant amount awarded to the Caboose would be applied to the maximum matching amount of $150,000 for the property. Staff review of the Caboose indicates that most of the work related to the grant request has already been completed. And if this is the case, then Resolution 17, Series 2019 requires that work already completed be eligible as a credit against any matching requirements for other grant categories. The resolution also requires paid invoices be provided for work that is already completed, which staff has not yet received. Based on all of this, if landmark status is granted, the staff recommends a total of $7,000 in matching grant funds be awarded to the caboose for the new windows, which is the one item that staff believes to be not currently completed. And once again, this would be a total grant funding towards the overall property maximum of $150,000 in matching funds. The final request is for the rear rail car, which is called the Steinbox car, in which a finding of probable cause is requested. This photo shows a current image of the boxcar. City staff and the Historical Museum do not have historical information related to the boxcar, so no historical photos of this exact car is provided. Background information of the rail car and images of similarly designed boxcars throughout the years were provided by the applicant and can be found in the staff report. As a reminder, probable cause determination is how the HPC approves grant reimbursements for historic structure assessments, which in this case could be up to $10,000 for the commercial property. Landmark criteria is used to evaluate probable cause applications. So when considering landmark criteria, staff finds the car was originally constructed in the late 1800s, but its known historic relation to Louisville was not until 2023 when it was moved to the subject property at 1155 Pine Street. An inscription of J.J. Steinbaugh, Louisville, Colo was found on the interior of the boxcar, but the history behind this inscription remains unclear. And because all of this, staff does not find probable cause for this structure. So considering all the applications, staff recommends approval of the landmark designation for the historic structure to be named the Miners Mansion, which would include a $50,000 commercial landmark incentive to the property owner. Approval of the alteration certificate for the Miners Mansion with the condition that the historic window opening size and location on the front facade be maintained. Approval of the restoration and rehabilitation grant for the Miners Mansion of up to $150,000 with the condition that all final reimbursements be for the Miners Mansion building alone. Approval of the new construction grant for the Haven of $75,000. Approval of the caboose probable cause extension. Denial of landmark designation for the caboose, denial of the restoration and rehabilitation grants for the caboose, and denial of the probable cause for the Steinbox car. And that includes the staff presentation. The applicant also has a presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? I guess my only clarification is there's 3, or technically 4, and they'll all, like, we can landmark each one individually, but as far as the grant amount, does it go towards the property or towards the structure?
So yeah,
The new addition, obviously.
the grant would be for the entire property. Landmark is also for the entire property. I think the distinction is the caboose. If the caboose were not to be included in the landmark designation for the entire property, it would just be considered an accessory structure. Might have a little less landmark protection moving forward, if that makes sense.
Well, I know we've excluded landmarking on specific accessory structures before, but I was just curious, it goes towards the property in general, unless there's an exclusion, and as far as the funding, it goes for the whole property.
Yes.
But it would only technically be for whatever structures are part of the landmark, if
Yes.
there were any exclusions.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Does that make sense to everyone?
So your recommendations was to combine 50,000 for landmark, 150 for restoration rehab for the mansion, and up to 75,000 additional on top of those for the New Haven.
Correct.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll have our applicant presentation.
Good evening. Andy Johnson, DAJ Design. You are going to be treated to not me talking tonight, and I'm going to be turning this over here in just a little bit, but a couple of things on little housekeeping. This is obviously a very complex application. There's a lot of moving parts. I think there's a lot of will on the owner's part to be taking staff recommendations and also your recommendations. So I'll let Travis do the talking on that when that time comes. We did do a pre-application on this a long time ago for the PUD application, and one of the requests by Public Works was to allow for a wider drive aisle. That is the reason for the house moving 5 feet to the east. It otherwise wouldn't comply. So while it's in the same position in the north-south direction, it is going to be in a slightly different position in the east-west direction. In terms of one of the public comment letters that you received, it was very well written. I think that the issues that were addressed in that letter are largely, or should be largely addressed during the PUD application. And I think most, if not all, don't necessarily apply to tonight's discussion. That said, the PUD is obviously an important part of this project, and compliance with the PUD and current zoning is a discussion point. So if there are questions from any of the commissioners, I'm happy to answer any of those questions, as well as I'm sure staff will be able to help with that as well. And then along those lines, I'll have to remember what I was going to say. I think with that, what I'd like to do is turn this over to Travis and take you through the story of the caboose and the mansion.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, things are about to get wild. Good. Okay. Thank you all for having me. As you probably know, I'm Travis Ramos, and my wife and I, our family is the property owner at 1155 Pine. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in here. I'm just excited because I get to tell some stories tonight, and it may seem to meander for a bit, but it's all going to come together at the end. I'm going to talk about each different piece and a couple fun things in between, and then it'll land kind of all the way at the final vision. I've got to give a shout out to Andy with GAJ. Andy is a gem. You all know Andy, love Andy. And I just got to give him a huge thank you. He has been an absolute huge part of this project. It would not happen without him. So, Andy, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here. All right, so my first visual aid, it is this doorknob. You see a picture of it up here. I'm holding it in my hand. This doorknob sits on my nightstand as far back as I can remember. For many, many years, it has been on my nightstand. And the reason that I bring this up is because I pulled this from the ashes of my step-grandparents' home after it burned down. Not in the Marshall Fire, not here. This is many, many years ago in rural Oklahoma. And I remember I stepped through the doorway of what was left of their house, and I looked down. It was all overgrown at that point, and I saw this doorknob, and I picked it up because I knew as a kid I had gone through that door so many times. I'd put my hands on this doorknob. But it ties me, the reason I have it here today is because it ties me to a story. This thing on its own, absolutely worthless. You couldn't find a piece of anything that's worth less than this. It is a burnt doorknob. But I keep it, and it's on my nightstand because it ties me to a story. And for me, it's a little personal, but after this story, without getting into the big story, after 30 years of me hating someone for something that happened to me as a child, redemption, this symbolizes to me that redemption was possible, that forgiveness was possible. It's a little thing. It's worthless to anybody but me. But when I see it, it doesn't remind me of, it reminds me of something good, something beautiful. And so I keep it. It's on my nice. All right, that's like the saddest whatever part of the story. So getting into further into the presentation here, what does it look like to save and savor our small town's history? Because that's what we've been trying to do for years now. What are the things, what are the doorknobs that our town will choose to save, and who will save them? People like this guy right here. I already called him out, but this is from months ago when I was sitting down with Andy, and he is doing his magic, and I'm just nodding as I normally do when he does his magic. It's people like Andy with DAJ that help save and savor our small town's history. I imagine a day, I love thinking about this, 80 or 100 years from now, there's going to be someone else sitting in front of whoever the commission is at that point, and they're going to be like, I'd like to restore this original Andy Johnson DAJ house or building or whatever. And his fingerprints are all over Louisville. And so what does it look like? It's doing things like Andy does. Oh, you didn't know you had a cameo? Gene Morgan. It's doing things like what Gene does and has been doing for years, putting so much time, energy, and effort into our town. And I'm calling her out here because she donated her mining cart. I'll change the picture, Jan. You're like, please do. So Jean donated. She had a mining cart original to the area. It was a coal mining cart. I went back in the Louisville Historic Archives and looked up pictures of similar mining carts. It was sitting in her yard, and she said, this is going to get so much more eyes on it, so much more people connecting to our history if it's in front of the mansion there, if it's out there on the corner. And so we used the tractor, and she donated it. We moved it from her house over in front of the mansion, and we're currently restoring it, actually, which is pretty exciting. She also we found some wheels for the mining cart that's on the corner at Courtesy and Pine there, where the train cars are. It was missing wheels. It has been for decades. Found some wheels. Gene donated them. So it looks like that. People doing things like that. That's another way that it looks to save and savor our small town's history. What you guys are doing, right? Sitting on the HPC. People donating artifacts. I love this story. So Gigi with the museum, she told me a story where her and her husband Chris, they were working on the floor in their house. They found newspaper in the floorboards, kind of like this over here. But for them, for me, I found newspaper in the floorboards of the mansion, and I took it all out, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to do cool things with it. For them, they put it right back for somebody 50 years from now to rediscover. And I love that. Maybe it looks like that. But all different ways, architects, citizens, from doing million-dollar renovations of historic structures to the simple act of donating an artifact or playing in the vintage baseball game coming up here in a week or so. The common thread is the story of our shared history, because story and our stories tie everything together. And today I get to share a slice of our story over the last 5 years with you guys, attempting to save and savor some of our town's history. And for us, what it's looked like is honestly just a lot of hard work, late nights, rolling up our sleeves, and doing what we can. I'm going to see if this works. Nope. Oh, no. I'm trying to play a video. Is there a way to get this up here? Does anyone know? It pulls up a YouTube video.
Let's see if we can drag it.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
We're all going to have to watch an ad for like 10 seconds. Okay, there we go. Bear with me. I don't know what this is. Okay, so if you guys remember, that was from about 5 years ago, just showing a lot of the work that we did when we first started. And I think all of you are familiar, generally with the story of saving the caboose. And it started with our family, but we quickly realized that it just resonated so much with our community. And it was just crazy because we stepped into this adventure that we were not really ready for. I found myself pulling my kids out of school several times because news stations kept calling and being like, "Hey, we'd like to do a feature on you. We'd like to do a thing." It was all over the local Denver news stations and then the camera and all that sort of thing. And as the word started to spread and more and more people started to join us and to help, people started to reach out. Actually, Stephen Tebow, the property guy, reached out. I don't know if he had some personal history with it, or I imagine he had some memorable business meeting inside there. Who knows? He wanted to buy it for significant money. And a neighboring town was like, "We love this. We could see this in our areas, as a thing." Won't mention the town, but we said, our history is not for sale. This belongs in Louisville. And the goal was to rescue it, renovate it, and return it back to the downtown area at some point. So I'm also going to show this quick video. I think this is a video. There we go. Oh, I'm going to do the same thing. Now I got it. So again, just showing how much this meant to our community, something we stepped into and did not even realize. One quick story. At one point when we were working, I saw it wasn't this piece of wood, but I saw a piece of wood that was obviously either from one of the rail cars just sitting up against the tree, and it was obviously placed there on purpose. And I found out who had put it there at some point. I forget how. And I was like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, is it cool if I keep that?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, no problem. I mean, we're taking wood off of it, off the boxcars." And he just wanted to keep it, perhaps similar to this. He wanted to keep it because it meant something to him. And all the people that came, they were doing that because it meant something to them. It's a small thing, but it carries a story. I'm going to tell this story real quick. This is one of my favorite. I love this story. Okay, so this is Abby Schutze. And when the whole project started to gain traction, get publicity, and all that stuff, Abby reached out, and she said, "Hey, I was actually a waitress in one of the original restaurants where the Caboose was in the early 1970s. Can I take you to coffee?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." She had seen on the news what was going on, so she asked to take me to coffee. And I showed up thinking I was going to get coffee with her, and it was her and several people that she had reconnected with, who she worked with. I think the restaurant was the Coal Creek Junction at the time, who she worked with, who were fellow wait staff. And so I find myself sitting across from these ladies who had reconnected, and they brought these photos and many others, started sharing stories, sharing photos of their history in the restaurant. And it was just one of those things. I'll never forget it. It was really, really cool. This is one of the photos. This is obviously on Main Street. There's the Empire. And of course, this is in the 70s, so kids are sitting on top, no big deal. And again, Louisville Furniture Store. And this is a photo from inside the restaurant. And so what we decided to do to honor their history and to say thank you to them, not just for reaching out, but just for being part of the project, we decided to do this thing called One Last Dinner, where we were going to treat them to one last dinner in their old restaurant, their old Caboose. So we worked with Cammie Reed, who's a personal chef. She volunteered her time. Greg and Susan, who live across the railroad tracks there, who are amazing, let her use their kitchen, and we carted food from their place over to the Caboose. And it may have been a very chilly night in February. There's snow on the ground. Everything was kind of half torn down. But we did this full catered personal chef dinner for the wait staff, for Abby and her wait staff friends. And it was just amazing. I don't know that I've ever seen people just snap back into the 20-year-old version of themselves so fast as when I saw these, this group get together, just swapping stories, the whole thing. So really, really cool. I'll never forget it. And this is just kind of cool. So this isn't all the same people, but early 1970s, and then 2019, well, early 2020. So it's kind of fun. So I blew the whistle last time, but in honor of these folks, I got to blow it one more time. They gave me this as a thank you for putting on that dinner and thanks for saving our Caboose. So this is also on my nightstand. It's a little thing, but it ties me to these stories that we share. And then, of course, the photo, it's actually leap year day, February 2020, that we saved the Caboose. And yeah, this picture needs no words. It's my favorite picture of all time. Okay, so that's the Caboose. That's that piece. But you have a Caboose now. What do you do with this historic Caboose? When you're in a pandemic, you do nothing except for leave it where it is in storage. But that also gave us time to think about, hey, what could we do? So we went through a few different iterations. Interestingly enough, we talked with Randy Caranci about putting it to the grain elevator. We talked with a few folks about a few different places, thinking this is part of our town's history. We want to bring it back to the downtown corridor. And then I saw this map. And this is, so the vertical line right in the middle is Courtesy Road, Highway 42. And where the arrow is pointing right there, that's where the train tracks used to run and where the train tracks that we relayed now go. Of course, our section is very small. But we saw this, and we thought, how amazing would it be to create this East Gateway to downtown Louisville, bringing the Caboose back downtown, and carrying forward this story in that way. And so, it was a big what if. Oh, Gene, you're making another cameo here. It's a big what if, but we approached the property owners, and they were open to selling it. They loved the idea of what we wanted to do with it. They were open to selling it, and and this is the day I told you, Gene, and it gives me goosebumps just thinking about that day that we had purchased the property, and this was before the train cars were on it. Our family, we ransomed everything we had to buy that property with this vision, and it was time to get to work. We'll touch on this more later. This is part of the kind of overall funding. There have been many other cases of rail cars being restored. This is a few examples of that and of costs associated with some of those and varying degrees of restoration. So yeah, we bought the property. We had the vision to put the caboose there. But we noticed, if we go back a couple slides, this is a Colorado and Southern Railway. So I was like, how cool would it be, in keeping with Louisville's history, if we could find an actual Colorado and Southern boxcar or rail car of any sort to put on a recreated section of the Colorado and Southern Railway that's in almost the exact same spot that it was. So I started to dig into, I'm like, I don't know what this would look like. So I started to dig through. This is like me every night. This was like my hyper focus for like a week, because every night after the kids were in bed, I was just combing through the Louisville Historic Archives looking for photos of rail cars in Louisville from back in the day. I found this from the Acme mine, and this is amazing. It actually says C&S on the side, so it's Colorado and Southern Boxcar. You can't make out the number on the end, so I found this photo. Was one photo to reference. If you look closely, again, there it is. Same exact style boxcar. And then if you look here, this is from, I think it's the Rex number 2 mine. Again, pretty much the same style car. You see the C&S. So then I had an idea, okay, this is what a boxcar would look like that was in Louisville during that time period. But then I started to realize, or I realized pretty quickly, century-old Colorado and Southern boxcars just don't really exist anymore unless they're in museums. I called every place. I felt like in the tri-state area, museums everywhere, and they weren't common to begin with. They're much less common now, 100 plus years later. And the only other one I could find that was of the same vintage and era, it's in a museum in Como, fully restored. So, not to be dismayed, this is ridiculous. What I did next, my next kind of hyper-focus every night after the kids were in bed, I was just combing. I would just get on Google Maps, and I would comb farms outside of Louisville looking for anything boxcar shaped, thinking maybe one ended up on a farm outside of Louisville somewhere. Sure enough, like a weekend of doing this between Louisville and Boulder on the Autry farm, I saw this. And that little shape right there in the middle, which zoomed up there, just right there in the middle, I was like, that looks like it's shaped like a boxcar. And so looked up the property owner, all that stuff, couldn't get in touch, so I just went by. It took me 3 or 4 times to go by and actually connect with the property owner, ask them about it. And this is what it looked like. Not only is it a boxcar, but it was actually a Colorado and Southern car, which, as I mentioned, Colorado and Southern cars are not common. They're extremely rare. If you do find cars like this sitting out in fields, they're usually Denver and Rio Grande or other such cars, not Colorado and Southern. But this is Colorado and Southern boxcar number 8064, one of 2 known remaining such boxcars. And I mean, it felt kind of miraculous. It was like, this is wild. We're rebuilding a section of the Colorado and Southern. We're trying to find a Colorado and Southern boxcar. This one right outside of Louisville. And we talked to the property owner, told them the story, told them what we're trying to do. And they loved it. And they were like, it's yours. We'd love to donate it to this project. So all these stories, there's so much more to them. But this is us, when we finally got it on site, craned it in, and put it on wheels. This is something that Emily mentioned earlier. So when we started to do assessment and a little bit of restoration work to the boxcar to shore up the roof and stuff like that, we peeled back the tin work that was on the inside of the boxcar. And I've got a video of this, but when I peeled back this piece and I saw this written inside, I was like, no way! How is this happening? Because J.J. Steinball, if you don't know, he's a Louisville legend. You guys all know J.J. Steinball. Steinball Pavilion, all that. So not only does it say J.J. Steinball, but it says Louisville, Colorado. This doesn't mean he signed it. This doesn't mean this is his actual signature. Maybe it was on a shipment, a shipment of tin work that the people at the Autry farm bought to put the tin work in the boxcar. I don't know. But it was just really awesome seeing that inside. So, yeah, I don't know how, but we found that boxcar, and no way to tell if it was actually, one of these boxcars that was in Louisville or not. It's certainly representative of the same style of boxcar we see in photos, that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's the boxcar story, the Stein boxcar, I started calling it. Just I think it's kind of fun. All right, so continuing the story of rolling up our sleeves to save and savor Louisville history. The next piece of the puzzle, which Emily, of course, also talked about, is the Miners Mansion. And it was built 15 feet off the original railroad tracks. It was actually built using parts of a boxcar. If you go underneath and look at the mud sills that hold up the house, there's like train car hardware sticking out of them, these big rusty square head bolts and giant sills. And if you look here, this aerial photo, you can actually see it. I'm going to zoom in. So right there, you can see what was the Y. So there's railroad track to the left, and then it's harder to see, but the white, there's the road that's the big white line, and then the white line in the middle is the other railroad track that went onto the grain elevator. And this is kind of cool. I posted something to social media about the Miners Mansion, and someone reached out. The Ferguson family reached out, and they said, "Oh, that's my grandma." So the little girl in this photo, her name is Lorraine DeSaley, later Lorraine Johns, and they sent me this photo because I didn't have any other photos of the mansion other than the assessor's card. So they sent me this photo from obviously 1951, and another cool thing, before I ever saw this photo, going into the cellar under the mansion, on the concrete, there's a name scrawled in the concrete, and it says Lorraine DeSaley, October 14th, 1955. So when Lorraine was like 13 years old, she scrawled her name into the concrete there when they redid the steps going down to the mansion, and it was really cool for me. She passed away several years ago, but it was really cool to see a picture of her, connect it with the name, and connect with the family. They also sent this picture of Emile and Apolloni, who lived there likely from the early 40s all the way through 1970. And were an active part of the community. I looked up the historic archives for the newspaper. They're mentioned like a gazillion times. So yeah. All right, so carrying on the mansion. I mentioned this earlier, but we peeled up the floor in the bedroom to see what the original floor would look like, and found all these newspapers. Just what JJ Steinbach. The Spirit and the whole project is back. JJ Steinbach. I mean, the color. These were buried under the floorboards for, 80 years, something like that. And then this was kind of neat. It's unfortunately cut out because this is where they put over the vent. But it's the United Mine Workers Journal, has the DeSaley family's address on it. But, it's the Miners Mansion. David Miners, they live there. It's kind of a cool piece. Okay, so we covered the caboose, the boxcar. Now the Haven, which is the structure that we hope to place at the rear of the site. So there was a historic preservation meeting, which some of you were probably part of, July 2023. Actually, were all of you here then? No? Some of you? Okay. And that's when the East Street property came up for review. 5 generations of the same family owned that property. It was the Romano family. And the houses range from, as far back as I could find, was 1884. There's another from 1890, and then the latest, I think, is in the 1940s. These are pictures of all the houses. There's an aerial view. But where the Haven comes from, oh, wait, hold on. I need my visual aid. Can you help me? It was visual aid in history. Let's go up and over. I'll put it right on top. You're done. You got it? Oh, look at us. This is amazing. Here's East Street. So all these houses, all their mailboxes right here. I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a minute. So for, most of those houses stood, many over 100 years. And sadly, and this is the way things go, right? Within a week, I watched this happen. This is hard to watch, actually, being there on site, just watching this thing just rip through these structures one after another and just chomp them up. But there's me, there's these mailboxes, and it's, again, me rolling up my sleeves to save some history here. So I grabbed these mailboxes, and I historically ransacked all these houses. So I went through these houses. I kind of had carte blanche. The owner just said, they're all going to be demolished. Do your thing. And so I saved so many doors. I was thinking at the site at 1155 Pine, it'd be cool to make some kind of installation, almost art installation, using the doors and mailboxes and some of these kind of rad things from these houses. This house in particular, I busted out a chainsaw and I went ham in here. Most of this wood started growing in the 1750s. I counted the rings. Started growing in the 1750s. The house was built in 1884. You can do the math. This is me and my kids. We made a coffee table out of some of the wood. Part of the reason I saved a lot of that wood is because it's period correct for storing the mining carts. So, I thought it could be kind of perfect for that. So that's that. This is the ghost house. And I remember there's a little bit of commentary in the meeting, July 2023, about the ghost house. This house is probably late 1800s, hadn't been lived in a very long time. It actually won Garden of the Year in 1951. I found a picture in a newspaper where the owner standing in front of it with their beautiful garden. But I went underneath the ghost house, looked to the right, and I saw these whiskey barrels that were like a third of the way in the dirt. And sorry, I just geek out about this stuff. I love it. And so I was like, I got to save these whiskey barrels. I don't know if this is from Prohibition or what, but again, I'm collecting things, pieces of Louisville history. Maybe they're not valuable to a lot of people. They're valuable to me. And I hope they're valuable to our town. So I've got these whiskey barrels. They're in storage. I've got like 30 doors. If anyone needs a door, let me know. And all kinds of things. Speaking of doors, I got a little vignette here. So this is the mansion. This is my daughter looking all sad. I don't remember why. But the door that I put on the mansion, the one that was on there was some flimsy door from the 80s. And this door is from Diana Keeler's house. Let's see. Yeah, 563. So Diana lived there for about 30 years. It was the house that was next to the Haven. And when we were trying to save the Haven, we were out there for 7 or 8 months. I was out there many, many nights, and I would always see this lady, like right around dusk. She'd pull up in this little Subaru Outback, and she would get out an Nalgene water bottle, and she would fill up this little bowl and just put it right there on the corner. And I found out later next to the house where she used to live. So she lived there for 30 years. At one point, after I'd seen her do this 15 times, I walked over and introduced myself. Her name was Diana, and what she was doing was feeding the animals. So over 30 years, she had fed squirrels, rabbits, birds, you name it. She had created her own like little paradise. And even after the houses were all gone, Diana was still going out there and still pouring water into a bowl. And there's something to me that's it's so beautiful about that. And so I kept Diana's door, and even though it's not in the best shape, it's got some character, we'll say that. But I put it on the front of the mansion because to me it ties me to that story and to her story. And every time I go in the mansion, every time I open that door, I remember Diana, and it puts a smile on my face. Oh man, this is a big story. I'm just going to touch on it real quick. Over on East Street, we realized was the last. I don't even know if I should be saying this. There, if you see the photo to the left there, there's these 3 railroad ties. Directly in front of that is the last known entrance to the Acme mine. So we just did some digging, and here we go. This is my daughter Sophie right there in the middle. I very often find this next to her bed at night. It's her toothbrush glass. I found this about 18 feet underground. And you see, we pulled so many bottles, so many things out. Again, like all these things, collecting bits and pieces of history. Okay, and then the biggest thing that we saved from East Street was the Haven. This 1,100 square foot, 1920s home. Talked to the original, or the descendants of the original property owners. And first, it was Uncle John's house. You see Uncle John there on the left. When I presented this last time, a guy named Austin who was here, who's part of their family, was like, hey, wait, that's my grandma, which is just kind of fun. But this photo is actually taken on the property. Uncle John lived in the Haven for some period of time. This looks like a howdy doody photo. I love it. And then another person that I know lived there was a man named Chuck Sarasso. This is him. I love this because if you look closer, they're painting the grain elevator. And you can actually see in the top left of the photo there. So Chuck he lived there, he was an artist, and he would do classes out of the Haven. And here's another photo of him doing an art class. This is in maybe late 80s, early 90s. So that's actually why it's called the Haven. The Artist's Haven is the full name. Chuck is still alive. He actually lives in Lafayette, and I've talked to him about commissioning a painting of basically this scene, because he just waxed on it. When I talked to him, he waxed on about how beautiful the field was and the grain elevator and the sun setting in the evening and the train going by. He used the word romantic. He said it was so romantic, and I was like, could you do a painting like that and so we could hang it in the Haven? Again, just tying the story together. Here's the Haven. One of the nights we were out there. And we decided to save it because we thought it's close by. It's 2 blocks away. It's close by. It's in great shape. Relatively easy to move. It's the form factor is essentially a long rectangle as opposed to some of the other houses. And it's really cute. It's really well taken care of. But how do you move a house when you don't have money to move a house? Because I'm sure you guys are aware, you give grants for this all the time. It costs a lot of money. So you need something to pull it with for starters. And so meet Big Bingo. I bought what I could afford, which was a very cheap, probably should be in a junkyard, 52-year-old white Freightliner. It ran, but it needed some work. And so we fixed up Big Bingo to get him ready to move a house. Our neighbor, Rob, with Quality Metals over there, he's since moved. He hooked us up with gigantic steel beams. We consulted with house movers, all this stuff, to build what would become this, which is the structure which we put underneath the Haven. So yeah, Rob hooked us up with the metal. We cut, we grinded, we welded, and we constructed this massive 60-foot long, 23-foot wide base for the house to sit on. That was kind of wild. And then here's my boys doing some final prep. It's under the house at this point. Again, I'm glossing over so much of this, but here's my boys helping. And here's my friend Ryan. Once we got the house up and out. And then on a cold December day, we moved to that house. And so, it's one thing to save things you might find in the floorboards, things you might find underground. I learned it's a whole other animal to save an actual house. Because I did it. We actually did it. We were the ones that did this. In the snow, a couple times in the rain, late nights, we saved that house. If there's one thing I've learned in doing all this, it's the little things. It's mailboxes and old newspapers, a railroad spike, a piece of wood. But really, it's the memories tied with those things that are everything. It's what binds us together as people and a community. And it's how we save our history. So this is my son and I, Tate, and I wrote this to go along with this slide. I'm just going to read it. Some afternoon, 50 or 60 years from now, when I'm long gone, I imagine one of my kids will stop by the corner out there at 1155 Pine with their family. They'll look at the 175-year-old train and the 150-year-old houses. And I imagine my son saying something like this to his kids. I remember digging that caboose out with my dad. I remember how everyone joined in. I remember the day we craned it out, there were so many people there. I remember Dad somehow put it in the Christmas parade one year. We all rolled down Main Street in it, this 45,000-pound caboose, Christmas lights and music playing, seeing people's faces light up with awe and wonder when they saw us rolling by. I remember the day we placed it there. Dad let me hold the guide rope, this giant caboose in the air. Even though I was a kid, I could move this massive thing with just a tug. And that small house there, that's the mansion. I remember when we discovered 80-year-old newspapers sandwiched in the floorboards when we were fixing it up. And the house at the back, the Haven, I remember helping Dad put these massive steel beams and wheels under it. He told me I could lift an entire house with one hand, and he put my hand on the jack and let me do it. I remember him sitting in the driver's seat of this 50-year-old semi in the dead of winter pulling that house out. I remember. Maybe one of my kids on their nightstand will have a relic of some sort someday, or a memory from all this that ties them to their past. Maybe something that reminds them that with hard work, you can do anything. Or perhaps just reminds them of being shoulder to shoulder with their dad. So I don't think it's very often that someone comes along with a unique vision to save and savor our history in the way that we're trying to, and then rolls up their sleeves to do it. Very, very little of all that we've done has been hired, only the essential things because we don't have the money to do it otherwise. This has been us doing it. We've collected all these pieces, not just these little things, but a caboose and a boxcar and railroad tracks, a mansion and a haven and mining carts and whiskey barrels and all sorts of pieces. And we've done so by the work of our hands. We're creating a Louisville museum of sorts at the East Gateway, collecting many disparate puzzle pieces of our past to make a patchwork museum, honoring our town's history at the east entrance to downtown. And the other day I was talking with Andy, or maybe a couple months ago now, and he just paused for a second. He said, Travis, you guys aren't just saving history here, you're creating it. Maybe we are. Maybe this is or could be some Louisville history in the making on the corner over there. We put in the work. So we're at a crossroads now. Do we continue to tell this story? I had to put this up there. My wife might be embarrassed. But she's a children's book illustrator, and mostly she wrote, we kind of co-wrote and illustrated a book about the story of saving the caboose, written from the eyes of our son Tate. But I absolutely love this. So that's where we're at. And then as far as the vision, Emily, covered most of this. So this is more of a refresher. I'll show you a few concept images of what we're envisioning. We've put this in front of City Council. Essentially had 7 thumbs up, or however many people are on the council, 6, 7. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for bearing with me. I know that was a much longer presentation than anyone's probably ever given, also with all the regalia or whatever, but I appreciate it. So the ask is to allow this story to continue. Put your weight behind it. We need your help. Partner with us, support what we're doing. And also, I would love some kind of retroactive reimbursement possible for work to date if that work is approved, because we have spent an immense amount of money, time, energy, effort to date making this happen. It's a staggering sum. So if that would be possible too, that'd be great. But that's what I got. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
All right, and then we have time for public comment. So we have a couple of cards. One is for Karen Peters. And if you'll just state your name and city of residence.
Just remove the box.
Thank you.
The mailboxes. I can help you with it. Thank you. We can just put it right here. Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Koblenz-Peters, and I'm an attorney who's working with John D'Amico, who's the adjacent neighbor on the north to this project. So the project's at 1155 Pine Street. His property is at 1210 Spruce Street. First of all, we are very much in agreement with the historic designation, with preserving the Louisville history. So that is not up for debate. There isn't a single person probably in this room who isn't in favor of preserving Louisville's history. The real question here is whether this lot and this layout is appropriate for this project. We have the original miner's house, which is currently located at the residence. We have the boxcar and the caboose, which have been relocated to this address. Now the applicant wants to bring over the Havens house. All that should be fine. But in addition, the applicant wants to have a patio, as well as a subterranean breezeway, which is going to force the Havens house placement to be outside the zoning requirements. So instead of being 20 feet from the setback, as is required by City of Louisville zoning, it is going to be 5 feet from the property line. Now, I want to emphasize what we're in agreement with. We are in favor of designating the Miner's Mansion as historic, as well as the boxcar, as well as the caboose, as well as most of the proposed alterations for these structures. We also have no objection to relocating the Havens house to the property, provided that in doing so, it does not interfere with Mr. D'Amico's rights to reasonably develop his own property under the existing zoning code. This project should balance historic preservation with fairness to neighboring property owners. So what's the concern? The concern is the proposed layout. The applicant is seeking to set the Havens house 5 feet from my client's property line instead of the required 20-foot setback. That reduction is not necessary for historic preservation. It is driven solely by the applicant's plans for a large patio and a subterranean breezeway between the two buildings. Those are features that are new construction. They're not historic in any way. Furthermore, in Resolution 17, Series 2019, Section 11, which talks about eligibility of the new construction grant, it talks about preserving, specifically talks about preserving the setbacks. This layout doesn't. It doesn't abide by the zoning regulations, and it doesn't even abide by the eligibility recommendations for the new construction grant.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but real quickly, so there is a 3-minute time limit on public comment. You can pool your time with anybody else in the audience. If they're willing to donate another 3 minutes, then you could have an additional 3 minutes.
At this point, unless anyone wants to donate, I didn't realize I had already gone over the 3 minutes. I think I will allow Mr. D'Amico to finish up with his 3 minutes, and he can understand how we are proposing a couple of solutions to make the applicant's project happen without infringing on Mr. D'Amico's property rights, so they can be developed in accordance with the zoning laws as well. Thank you.
Is there anybody that can pool any time with me for 6 minutes? No? Okay. I'll try to be really quick. I grew up in this area too. I get it. We're really in support of this preservation. We love it. We'd like to see it. We understand it. The issue is just the 5-foot setback. we're suggesting a recommendation that you make tonight. Since the applicant has submitted the layout of this plan, and just in a brief conversation with you here before the meeting, it seemed appropriate to talk about this, or we would be talking about it through the other process. But we want it to be preserved. We love it. We think it's great. We think it's a great amenity to the city. We get it. It's the 5-foot setback. Now, I'm not sure how many of you, and I'm going to try to be real quick here too. I'm not sure how many of you read the memo that I gave out, but yeah, that talked a lot about the Highway 42 plan. We understand that a lot of that's probably going to get scrapped because of this. At least that's what the staff had said, that they're probably going to scrap all of their plan for the north side of Pine between the railroad tracks and Pine. Given that, we're just trying to preserve a little bit of what the city would like to do through this Highway 42 plan. So we're hoping that we can make a recommendation here tonight, and before I get shut on my time, but we're hoping we can make a recommendation to where the applicant can still get this designated historic for every single thing they want. There just needs to be some concessions. They might not be able to put a brand new deck in a subterranean basement the size they want to, but it can be done. We've had engineers look at it. We've had an architect look at it. We've had an attorney look through the rules and regulations of the town. We spoke to Cameron Folks, the city engineer. We spoke to Matt Post, the lead planner. Emily's been really helpful on all this. So kind of cutting to the chase and understanding that you guys read all this, we're respectfully requesting that the board, HPC, approve the landmark and alteration certificate request with the condition that the rear setback not be encroached upon or a pipe be installed within the existing location of the drainage easement at the time of the development. We talked to the engineers, so that's the request we're asking. We talked to the city engineers and the city engineer, and he explained that this would be very difficult to do afterwards because they're proposing having the drainage flow into this ditch within the easement. So it's nice when there's a solution where both the city can keep a little bit of Highway 42 plan, the applicant can get his designation, and we can still preserve a little bit of our development. So I hope that it's understood where we don't want to stop any of this from happening. We understand it. During the big presentation, you might say, but my grandfather, Santo Domingo, worked in the coal mines. So, I get it. I mean, I was shooting ducks out of the warm water sloughs here when I was a teenager years ago. I mean, I get how important this all is, and I really appreciate the presentation to emphasize all that. We're there. We just hope that we can help guide this process a little bit, along with working with the applicant and working with the city to maybe make this work for everybody. So
Sorry, I'm reminding you your 3 minutes
understand,
are up.
and I know this isn't open
wrap
for
up.
questions, but if there are any questions, we're here too, and I hope that it's an open enough forum to have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, our next public comment is Jean Morgan.
Hello.
You'll just state your name and city of residence, and we do have 3 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't state that in the beginning.
My name is Jean Morgan. I live at 1131 Spruce Street, just 1 block north of this property. And I'm really happy to see that entry that Travis has made into our town. It's really reflective of our history. The train cars are great. And then I did get a coal car from the Conda family in Marshall that I had at my property for years, and I'm having it restored, and I gave it to Travis to be reflective of our town's history as a main entrance, and I really appreciate what he's done with his property. Let's see, let me think what else. The, another thing that happened that Travis did was he was able to locate a coal car that had wheels on it because somebody years ago took the wheels off of the coal car that the city had, in the park, the triangular park. Somebody stole the wheels off of it, and he found a coal car with wheels, and I helped him buy. I bought the coal car wheels, and I'm hoping that the city can restore that. I really like the entrance to our town. I think he's done a fabulous job making that historic. But my concern also is the impact on the fourplex just to the north, which our previous speaker spoke about. When I moved to town in like 72 or 73, I lived in that apartment complex just to the north. And to have that business, his business, be that close to the ditch and the apartment, I think would be extremely close. And I wonder if it could be moved back a ways from the ditch. I feel like that ditch also, I don't know if you have any influence on that, but it certainly needs to be not an open ditch, but it needs to be piped. But my concern is the closeness of this development to the apartment complex, because I did live there, and it's right backing up to it. So I hope that that can be moved forward a little bit, moved to the south a bit. So that's about what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and then John D'Amico.
That was me.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
great. So that's all of our cards, and looks like no one else is in the public. Anyone online that has a public comment?
If anyone online would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Who is it?
We're just asking if anyone online has a comment. All right, thank you. All right, we'll bring it back for discussion.
With so many different components to discuss, is there an order that we think we should begin with and move through? We can certainly go with how the staff has outlined this.
But I would suggest maybe just going down, like starting with the mansion and going through that way would be my recommendation, but we don't have to necessarily. Do you want to start like that?
Sure, unless people have questions or things we want to, since it's all sort of bundled, we can certainly start with that.
Is that good? Okay. So yeah, so we can look at the specific landmark probably first for that structure, and then the alteration certificate and grant. So we can look at the landmarking first for that.
So I think the Miners Mansion does meet the criteria in several ways for landmarking. It's certainly, in the same location and meets the age requirement as well as the physical integrity, if not the social history.
I would agree with that. I think that the fact that they're coming in for that, that's an easier portion of everything here to chew on. I would say for any grant sort of items, I would like to support the restoration of the front facade. I mean, being part of the stipulation there. There is also the fact that they're looking to move it 5 feet over to the west, I believe. East. Okay. I don't necessarily, out of the whole grand scheme of things, to pick it up, to put a new foundation under it, to be 5 feet over, that really doesn't move the needle that much for me as far as an alarm or an alert or anything of that sort. I really don't have that much of an issue with that, but maybe I'm not thinking things through on that front. If anybody else has any other opinion on that portion.
I also, if we do approve the alteration certificate, like other commissioner would like to see the windows retain their historic character. It's such a small building that every feature is pretty prominent. So I think that and the front, the overhang would be, we'd want to see those kind of retained.
So what if we just do the landmark first and go ahead and, can we vote on each one individually? Is that okay? Let's just do that, because I think the alteration certificate's going to be a little more complicated, just wanting to make sure we can really hash that out well. So let's just, it sounds like we're all in agreement that it meets all of our criteria for landmarking. And so if we want to make a motion for that, and then we can move on to the alteration certificate.
I'd make a motion to approve for landmarking of the existing home on 1155 Vine Street.
I'll second.
Talbot, can you say that into the record?
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve landmarking the existing home on the property at 1155 Pine Street.
I'll second.
And we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Chair Haley,
Yes.
Commissioner Whidden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
Yes.
All right, and so then looking at the alteration certificate, we can get into the nitty-gritty about that.
Where do you want to start on this one?
Wherever you'd like. So you mentioned the front facade, specifically in the windows.
Yes, I'd still like to see the original windows restored and the porch overhang. Looking at the site maps and property lines, I don't see also, nor do I see any problems with moving it 5 feet towards the west.
East.
Or, sorry, east. Yes, thank you.
I look at the building addition, the Haven. I have no issue with the structure being moved over there. I actually can respect that we're trying to move something and save something of that sort. I look at this as far as the setback portion. I respect what the adjacent landowner has said. I respect that there's current zoning laws associated with it. My sticking point is it really feels like for me, it's not our position to be really getting after the setback portion of this. We could put it as a contingent portion that it makes it through and goes through zoning and PUD approval situations and some other stuff. I understand that the setbacks are there for a reason. I can only assume with the depth of what I think I understand of the basement that they'd be putting under the building addition, the Haven, it would probably need some sort of a shoring setup, and then also possibly causing any adjacent owner to need shoring that they wouldn't normally have if they wanted to go down and dig out and do anything on their property. It's a possibility. I would have to look at zoning setbacks. But with all this being said, I don't think the setback portion is something for us to really comment on much, besides that if we were okay with kind of the grand theory and thought behind this, that it would be contingent upon it going through some other portion of review, which is not our review.
Mm-hmm. And I would agree with that. I think a recommendation I would probably just throw out there to zoning is that we're not necessarily giving any extra allowances.
No.
So whatever zoning, that's their realm, and so whatever they deem, like we're not suggesting that there be extra allowances for setback for historical purposes. Is that what you're kind of?
Yeah, I would say there's no recommendation on it. I'm not recommending that it does or doesn't follow it. I understand and respect that the setbacks are there, and it's just not really our thing to
Right.
review, in my opinion.
I agree with that. So you spoke about the windows and awning. Did you have something about the front facade you said earlier?
What they're proposing on the historic home miners mansion was not, it really doesn't sit with where it sits now or with the historic facade. So that was my comment on that one, was just to any matching funds be, the wagon be hitched to restoring it to that front original facade would be my lean anyways. Does that make sense?
I think so.
I'm just trying to figure out what order we're doing all of this.
So we took care of the landmark.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at the alteration certificate.
Okay.
So just specific work that they are wanting to do. So specifically in terms of the moving the structure.
Just trying to make sure I'm referring to
Yeah,
the right
totally.
table.
There wasn't really. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to get, to make sure that you address the new construction too. So alteration, just to be clear, alteration
Right.
certificate's about, restoring the miner's mansion. But the addition and how the addition is attached and separated, I just want to make sure that you articulate if you're supportive
Right.
of that. As you know, there's standards for how to attach buildings to historic buildings. And so I just want to make sure, and again, that doesn't specifically relate to the zoning setback and whether the city council will provide a waiver to that. But I think if you think that the design is meeting the historic preservation standards and the separation is meeting the historic preservation standards, I want to make sure you address that in your deliberation.
Right.
Right, thank you, Rob.
And so the Haven, even though it's an old historic structure, is being considered the new addition.
Yes.
So that is a
Right.
good clarification. And then the subterranean,
Subterranean part is new as well.
right, exactly.
Right.
So did that clear up?
Yeah, I just was trying to make sure I was looking at the
Right.
right list
No,
of
for sure.
things. From my perspective, I think the delineation between the newer part and the historic portion of the project seems really clear and straightforward.
I would agree. I think it's a really, I think it's wonderful that this home is being moved from the East Street Village. Again, as you said, Mr. Ramos, many of us were here when that property came up for discussion, and it's really great to see that house being saved, being stored, and being moved here. I think, with the subterranean addition and then the house there, it's very, very fluid. It all works really well. And the work that'll be done to it, I think, will work very well. So I have no problems with the alteration certificate, whether it's applying to the Miners Mansion or the Haven or the subterranean portion.
So there's roofing and waterproofing. I'm just looking through the list.
With that being said, much like has been articulated, I'm also sensitive to the property rights of the adjoining neighbors. And, I imagine whatever decisions we make here, then council has to ultimately approve what we decide tonight. And things like the setback, correct me if I'm wrong, are not really in our purview in the drainage to decide. Can we decide like the setback?
No, again, city council will be reviewing that under their waiver criteria. So, it does encroach into the setback up to the 5-foot line, but it's out of any easements. Again, I think we want to make sure that as part of this equation and package of approvals that they need, that you think that the location is the most appropriate based on your criteria. Versus, yes, you really shouldn't be weighing in on the drainage and the zoning standard itself.
Having not seen any other setup, I don't know if I could put the tag of most appropriate location.
Well, I would say from a historic preservation standpoint, so there are standards for how you are supposed to attach new, so if you think this appropriately meets the criteria for how to attach new construction to the historic building, again, it doesn't mean there's not other ways to do it.
Yeah.
So maybe that was not the right way to say it, but I just want to confirm that your alteration certificate will be approving the distance of the separation, how it's separated, how it's connected.
And I think that all of that works based on our criteria for historic preservation, right? There's clear delineation between the new construction, as it's called. The materials are different, like the subterranean is not visible, so is not problematic. But again, the distance not really relevant. The subterranean distance and then where the house is placed isn't really relevant. It's kind of something we've never encountered before, not really relevant to, I think when I think of the guidelines for historic preservation. So again, there could be different designs. The subterranean could go different directions, things like that within other zoning rules. Things like the height variance are great. The materials are great. The delineation's great. That's what we usually look at criteria. So just want to make that clear. So when the city kind of looks at this, other things maybe could be proposed that could be more thoughtful with adjacent property.
And I think the separation is great, but it doesn't have to be that wide necessarily. It could be a shorter distance if it needed to be.
But are we trying to direct the
We're just
width of
giving
that, or just?
that would be like the historic, like we agree with the separation.
Right.
Because that's an historic delineation between the two. But it doesn't have to be that actual distance. It could be closer,
Right.
which gives zoning more freedom to do what they need to do as far as staying in.
As long as there's separation, we're saying we agree as long as separation is maintained. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to have 2 structures saved in one project, or up to 4 structures saved, counting the caboose and the boxcar. So I would hate to see us lose an opportunity to save these properties. I do feel like zoning is out of our realm. I don't want to go there at all. And I think the project as presented with a separation of this type meets our criteria. I don't think it's out of mass, so I'm in agreement with all of that as far as the way it is conceived, maybe not the exact dimensions.
I think the underground portion of the connecting elements, I think is clever as far as, just really not being overly apparent from the street facade and everything else. So I can respect that. The materials, obviously being of a different period, the question starts to become the Haven House and how it's on a historic property and how it connects to it. And it almost feels like it needs some sort of a tag or a story or some other way to separate it from the miner's house, in my opinion. And then for me, the oddity really becomes, you got the historic miner's mansion, you have the Haven, you have the caboose, and you have the Steinbach art. I mean, oh my goodness, it's become an eclectic history mixer. I don't know how else to put that one. I think the stories and everything that go with it are great. I think the passion behind it's great. I think just preserving some of the stuff is great. I have a little bit of a hard time putting it all together. And that's probably my struggle here on this whole setup. And I can respect that somebody's put the time, effort, and everything into this. It's nothing about the passion. It's not about the intent or anything else with that. I do look at this a little bit as this is the entrance to the backside of our town, and it's an odd story to take in, but yet it's kind of a fun story. I don't know.
Is it our role to determine which historic structures are near each other on a lot, on a parcel of land? Or is it our role to promote landmarking and preserving the properties?
That's a good question. I think that, again, the miner's mansion isn't really that much of a question for me. There's a few stipulations that kind of go with it, in my opinion. But the Haven one, I like to see it saved as well. I like to see the creativity that came with it, everything else. I can even respect the caboose. I'm not quite as much in connection with that one, to be honest. But I do like the story. I like the passion. I think really, for me, matching funds and other stuff with the miner's mansion, I have no problem with the building addition, the Haven. I could get on board with it up to a certain point, but I think the stipulation for me is that it has to pass other PUD reviews and everything else with it. And if it doesn't, that it's not part of this setup for me. The caboose and Steinbach car, I'm not in favor. I could see.
Gotten there yet.
We're not there yet. Right.
So we'll wait for that
We'll
one.
wait. Right.
Yeah.
So right now, we're just really trying to decide whether we want to approve landmark.
We already approved the landmark.
Okay.
For the miners.
So we're just looking at the alteration, which includes.
Just the alteration, okay,
the,
not landmarking of the
Right,
other house.
so it includes, and this is in our packet, but it has the for the original structure, the miner's mansion, the roofing, the window doors, insulation, and house relocation. Those are specific to the original structure. And then the second part of the alteration certificate is the addition. That's all wrapped
Of
up
the Haven.
in the alteration certificate. So we kind of touched on like the setback, just kind of giving recommendations, because that's not really
Right.
but we covered that. So it sounds like we're, as far as the work for the primary structure, we're in favor with everything that's being proposed. So this is the roofing and waterproofing, the windows and doors, except that we want the original shape and size, right, from the original photos. So not bigger than those. And then drywall insulation is the other thing, and then the house relocation. Is that good with everyone?
I think that's correct. Right.
So one thing when we make them.
Just a minor clarification, the drywall's interior, it's not part of the alteration certificate.
Okay,
So that would be
okay.
part of the grant request. So it's really all the exterior restoration work in the building addition.
Okay, great. And one thing I was going to ask, when we do the grant, that you had that really nice chart that was like colored green and blue or something. Can you have that up when we get there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you're going to make a motion, we do have a resolution in there too, so you can
Okay, reference
recommend
that.
approval. You should be recommending approval of the resolutions, and then that'll have the condition on the windows if you
Okay.
just reference
Okay,
the
perfect.
resolution.
Right. So that's what I was going to say, is we just need to make sure we have a. All right. So, so that's everything on the original structure. And then for the addition, are there any thoughts on this as far as, it sounds like everyone's been in favor of the addition as long as it complies with the zoning?
Correct. Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Did you have something else?
I do feel like, I don't know, is there something where we should request that there's a tag of its original location or some other item that identifies it as being of a different place, but of a certain, I don't know.
I don't know. It's in the rear of the, my thoughts is in the rear of the property.
You know?
And so I don't know what tag we could like.
It's just an
Ask for.
uncomfortable part for me, so.
I
that's-
mean,
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree only because it's not the original orientation of structures on the property. And there, you have one that's more or less going to retain its original location and then others that are added. So I think it would be nice to make that clear.
I'm not thinking that the story will not be told by.
Right, I was gonna say, we have a good storyteller to make
Yeah.
sure everyone.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting something like the landmark plaques that we have just says originally at the other location with the address and moved to this location?
Well, we're,
I don't think we're landmarking this one, but I wonder if we could, if it just needs some identification that it's not part of that landmark portion, or I'm just asking the question. This is definitely a lot to unpack.
well, and I wonder if on the landmark plaque, there could be some kind of really simple, like, I don't know what that would look like, but designation that that's the only, like, original structure on the property or something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
The 10,
I don't think, I wouldn't recommend necessarily making that. I would say it's a suggestion to the owner. Like, it'd be great if,
Sure.
but I don't know that
Yep.
I would suggest like putting that in the vote or anything, but that's just me.
Right. I think it'd be, I agree, it'd be great to have that historic information included for clarity and accuracy about the different properties or different structures on the property. But I don't know that's anything that we can do here.
All right.
So it sounds like I'll make a motion to approve the alteration certificate
Do you see the resolution?
for Miners Mansion, as well as to approve the resolution that would require restoring the front facade to include the windows and front overhang to be historic, to match the historic photos.
That's resolution number 8 in the packet.
Thank you. That's what
Thank you. I
looking
couldn't
for.
find it. It's a big packet. Couldn't find the
It's
resolution.
so big. I'm like, I don't know where
Okay,
it is.
resolution 8.
I'll second.
And we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Chair Haley,
Yes.
Commissioner Whidden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
yes.
Can I ask a quick question, just right out of this?
Sure.
This is all conditional upon approval of a PUD outside of our setup, correct?
I mean, I guess, and that's a good question. If the setback were to come and they had to change their addition plan, would that come back before us?
Yeah, I think
before-
you'd have to review an alteration certificate for the new
'Cause it'd be altered
location.
again.
Yep.
Yeah.
The landmark could stand, but the alteration certificate would have to come back.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so the next item is the grant for the landmarking for the landmark grant and the new construction grant.
So the applicants requested $15,000 of new construction grant, and staff has recommended more funding towards that, up to the maximum commercial amount. Reading in the packet, it will be used, it sounds like on the main level for commercial purposes. Right, is that correct? I believe, and then the below-ground subterranean will be residential.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So the staff recommended going above what was requested for the grant, partly because it's commercial, so it'd be kind of mixed use, and is it correct that the first level will be used commercial?
Yes, so it would be a mixed use, which is part of the land use applications. It is a commercially zoned property, so all of the grant recommendations are based on the commercial amounts.
And I would just add, the proposal is to use the property as a live-work unit, which is a commercial use, actually, even though it has a residential portion, we consider that a commercial use. So I think that part of the applicant's request would be to transition it to that use. which then also so between the zoning and the actual use of the building, because it's not always just the zoning, but the use, then it would qualify, because the use and the zoning would be commercial.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you. And can staff one more time kind of go over the divide? Did they remember that in the presentation? They said they divide.
And maybe I'll add, and I know we lost Travis, but so one of the things is let me provide some context too. So the original grant request was for residential, and so everything's packaged together. So it's not all up here, but it does increase the new construction grant up to $75,000, as well as the landmark incentive up to $50,000. So that's an additional $125,000 by moving it up to commercial. I think some of the information in the original application had estimates for both structures and the connection of the structure. So we've actually worked with the applicant since then to separate out the amounts. So we've tried to simplify it here. So basically, we've taken the work related to the miner's mansion and separated it out, and staff's recommending that anything eligible in that could qualify up to 50%. And I think that goes up to 178,000 under the revised numbers. But we're recommending that the grant be limited to 150,000 because staff's not finding extraordinary circumstances. So with revised information, there's $178,000, $178,000 of qualifying work. But if you think there's extraordinary circumstances, you could potentially go up to that amount, but staff's recommending 150 without extraordinary circumstances. Is that accurate? Okay.
And sorry, just to clarify again, so this grant would be for Miners Mansion, not for?
Yeah, this would be the Miners Mansion only, restoration and rehabilitation of the Miners Mansion. And then the new construction grant for the addition is separate.
Is separate,
As
okay.
once you've approved the alteration certificate,
Got it.
that would be approved also with this.
And the grant for the new construction, I'm just looking at the staff packet, which I don't think included this, or at least not what I'm looking at. But the staff packet does include the new construction grant for the Havens, that'd be 75,000.
That's the 75,000,
Okay, so this
yes.
is 150 for minors, there it is.
Yes,
And then,
yep.
okay,
And then the bonus grant went up, going to commercial as well, up to 50,000. So they don't have to use that towards restoration and rehabilitation, but they can use that money for anything if approved, but they could use it towards the project if they chose as well.
okay. And we're doing these one by one. So Emily, can you go back to the other one? Thank you.
I think that we'll go one by one, but I think the Haven's probably the most straightforward to some extent, because, I don't see a whole lot of hashing out that amount for the grant, the 75,000 for the new addition and connection. Does anyone have?
Thank you. I mean, you feel that way because that's the maximum commercial amount. It'll be used commercial.
I mean, I guess there's just not much information to partial out. Like, I don't know.
It doesn't have to go towards restoration or rehabilitation. It's just the overall cost of that building addition.
The addition, right. So it's just the new, or the Haven, which is not new, but moved, but not landmarked, and then the connecting portion. So maybe there's more to discuss, but that seems a little more straightforward.
I think what you're asking is, does anybody have anything to say on the $75,000 portion? Because that 150, you're not all that concerned about.
Well, I think there's more to talk about for the 150 potentially. So I was just kind of going to the more straightforward
Okay.
kind of. So we can go back to the mansion if you'd rather do that first, if that makes more sense. I just thought.
Just trying to make sure I'm following.
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I was just like, what's the most straightforward? So I was just like, that seems the new construction piece, minus the setback, which you don't have any control over, seems a little more straightforward as far as that's what we give for new addition.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say on this front.
Right.
Okay.
And so again, just to clarify, that's what we give for a new addition. That doesn't mean it. So in most cases, what's a new addition is truly a new addition, and it's new materials, new design, all that. This, I think it's just a little bit struggling thinking about it because it's not a new addition, it's an old home that's being moved, but it doesn't,
But I think a lot of the money will go,
probably towards moving it.
and the excavation and everything. So
Okay.
that's where a lot of because they're not actually like building a building, but they're creating the space for it.
Yeah, okay.
So,
There's plenty of new that will go on inside of it, even if you have the shell. So
Yeah.
right.
I don't think there's really much that I'm hung up on here
Okay.
on that front.
So see, now I get to check something off.
Okay.
Okay, so then we'll go back to the grant request for the actual miners mansion, and there's more details in that.
Should we make an approval or should we?
It's all
It's all one resolution, so
Okay.
yeah, you can
Okay.
move on to this.
yeah. And so I think
So
of one big,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, one obviously big portion is just the extraordinary circumstance piece. So
Right.
that's all I was gonna say.
I don't necessarily see extraordinary circumstances in this case. I think the house is in its original location. The money will go towards shoring up the house. It's not an overly large home. I think there's work to be done for sure, but this, the amount that staff is recommending, hopefully will go a good way towards that.
I think especially for the size of the house. We've had larger structures that have a lot more that, are more obvious extraordinary circumstances for the size of a house. And the size and commercial combination, I think, is pretty adequate. As far as.
I would lean that way. I would look at staff's recommendation on this one. I'm not finding myself needing to break out from staff's recommendation on this one.
Yeah, I would
I'm
agree.
inclined to feel the same way.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts and pieces. It's fairly mind baffling trying to.
This
say,
one's
this part's going to be here. This part's going to be here. This is going to be part. I know staff has put in a lot of hours to come up with their recommendations, and I don't see anything that's jumping out at me as, well, why would you do that? You know, it looks like a solid thought process and following the rules as we're supposed to follow. So I would be in agreement with approving it as staff put forward.
Then I'd like to make a motion to approve a preservation and restoration grant for Miners Mansion for $150,000. In addition to that, I'd like to make a motion, include in my motion approval of the new construction grant for the Haven for $75,000.
This is resolution 9.
Resolution 9.
I'll second.
And we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Chair Haley,
Yes.
Commissioner Whidden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
Yes.
All right. And so then the next item is probable cause for the caboose. So just looking at that one structure. And this was approved previously, but it expired. So that's why we're revisiting it, just for a refresher.
So we did approve this HSA previously, several of the sitting committee members. It's great to see that the HSA was done. Be wonderful to see, what was learned about the caboose. It's a small structure, but I'm sure things were learned about it. So I would be in favor of reimbursing for the HSA and extending the expiration date, or extending the date of reimbursement.
Yeah, I agree. There was nothing found to take away from what was agreed upon the first time around. If anything, there's more information now, and it still makes sense and even more sense. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I think we can benefit from the documentation of items with that, whether the next part goes one way or another.
Right. All right. Anyone have a motion this side of the room?
Make a motion to extend the approval allowing for the HSA reimbursement for the caboose.
I'd second that motion.
Yeah, and it's technically probable
And
cause.
probable cause.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't you second
I second
it?
that
Okay.
motion.
And we'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Chair Haley,
Yes.
Commissioner Whidden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
Yes.
All right, and then the next item is to landmark the caboose.
I find, I know what Josh is saying about the multitude of different things going on that property, but if our question is, should we landmark that caboose to help promote the preservation and landmarking of a structure, then my answer is yes. I think it's a structure worth saving. I think there is a ton of history to it. It at least exceeds the 50 years old. It's definitely has a huge, almost a logo of it of Louisville on there. That car, it's Louisville. It's what a lot of their history was formed on. So I think it's something worth saving. I would be in favor of it.
I look at this and I'm going to play the other side here. I don't agree with that portion, and I respect that it has been moved, it has been saved, it has been restored. I like and appreciate all that. I really do. For me, to landmark that with the move, and it's not in the historic place, there's too many moving portions. Just like I wouldn't landmark the house that was behind, I would not landmark this one. And I do like the history, I do like the story, I do like everything else that's going on with the passion and everything else that comes with this. It is the entrance to the backside of Louisville, and I just don't feel like all the connections are there for this piece for me to vote in favor of landmarking it. I like a lot of the things you said. I like a lot of the stories that come with it, and I think the story should still be told. And I think it's an accessory structure on this site, and it's your right to put it on the site. For me, I don't agree with landmarking that portion.
Has this committee not approved some other structures that have been moved off of another site so that they wouldn't get demolished and then landmarked them? I think there's been a few that have been moved into.
There have been, for sure. I think one of the things with this, because this train came before us before, that's why it was released in the first place, but it wasn't original to Louisville. Like, it's an old, like, the actual caboose wasn't, like, it was moved here, like, in the,
As well as a lot of other structures in Louisville have been
but
moved here.
they were moved, it wasn't, I think it was moved from even out of state. Like, it wasn't like like, most of the homes were moved from, like, Superior or
Lafayette,
even here.
sure.
But this was, like, it wasn't,
It had no connection to Louisville to start with.
right. It
I
was,
see what you're saying.
yeah. So that's one of the history pieces, is it's not, it wasn't.
Because we have no way of telling
Right.
where it originally
Right. So,
was.
I would say that also landmarking this one just it kind of muddies up everything there for me. And I don't know if anybody else feels differently, and please speak up if you feel differently. And again, I think it just.
Andy's got some
So
information that he can help.
So I tend to agree that the caboose, well, I'm thrilled that it's being saved. And a private property owner can certainly put what they want on their private property. I don't believe that it should be landmarked. I think many community residents will love that the east entrance to our town continues to look more historic and have more historic components to it. But down the road, we preserve primarily residences, commercial, agricultural, things like that. I think the history of this not coming originally from Louisville, being here for a period as a restaurant, I don't think warrants saving it for Louisville's forever future. But again, a property owner can certainly do whatever they want with their property. And I think many community members will love and appreciate this use of it.
I'm inclined to agree. I think it's extremely charming and charismatic, and I enjoy driving past it on a regular basis. But I'm not convinced that it meets landmark criteria, in large part because its original context is missing. It's a really cool feature, but I don't think it meets our landmark criteria. So.
yeah, I agree with that. I'm in favor of not landmarking the actual caboose itself. So.
At this point, can we take any more input from the applicant? It looked like the applicant had some information they wanted to share.
Did you have something you wanted to share? Yeah, 3 minutes.
Okay. Just for the recording, Andy Johnson. Don't think I'm going to change your mind, but I do want to give you a different perspective to consider. So, first of all, the caboose did come from Colorado, maybe not from Louisville, probably came through Louisville, as most trains do. A lot of railroad traffic here, right? It's not about where did it come from, it's about that history of Louisville. So we talked about that a little bit earlier. Probably did not touch upon it nearly as much as we should have. There's a couple things here that I think is important to understand. First of all, I know we're not talking about the 50-year criteria, but the 50-year criteria is a minimum criteria that automatically puts a building into a category to be considered for preservation, right? It has been demonstrated across Colorado that we have preserved, or communities have preserved, structures way younger. For example, the Dushanbe Tea House. Within 20 years of that building being moved or being relocated, disassembled and relocated to Boulder, it was designated as a landmark. These are things that you guys get to decide. This is not this objective criteria that we have to have a rigid dogma around. This is about, do we have an emotional connection to it? That's the saving part, right? When we talk about saving structures, that's the emotional connection to being attached to that building. That has nothing to do with preservation. Preservation is our tool belt of how do we do it. How do we do it well? How do we do it completely? Or how much do we do, right? So I think it's important to understand, and let me just say that differently. It's hard to hear the comments around saving but not preserving. Clearly, we have the emotional connection to this structure, as those in Boulder had to the Dushanbe Tea House. I realize that the scale is quite different. It's a magnificent building. However, when it moved to Boulder, it got changed quite a bit, if you really know that structure. Like, it's not the same structure, but there's an endearment to it, right? So if there is an endearment to the structure, if we love passing by this thing, if we love the story and the history that Travis saved and created, please just take that into consideration. Don't be a hammer looking for nails. Consider the emotional connection that we have to these things that we save and then preserve. So anyway, I wanted to offer that, and I just wanted that to be a perspective, since we don't get to talk about other communities nearly as much as we do our own. So thank you.
So Chair, I think you've reopened the public hearing.
Right.
And so this is not, like, we really discourage taking multiple public comments. There was significant amounts of testimony already. I think it's up to you if you want to reopen the hearing and have additional testimony, but I'd really recommend that you limit it. It's a really hard decision you all have to make.
Yes.
And this isn't intended to be a debate.
We're going to bring it back to discussion. Does the commission is okay with that?
Yeah.
Or do you think?
Or should we?
Yes. Okay. I think another portion of my thought process also is looking to the future of having, I guess, just like long-term use of the structures. So just as property changes hands or that kind of thing, like if this caboose is landmarked, it's going to be landmarked, which means no one can change it in the future. So I think that's something to consider too, is for as long as the train can stand, like, we will protect it. So I guess that's one question I have of, like, is that a good use of our holding this structure? Does that make sense? Like, it's not a house, it's not a building, it's a train. And so there's just that question for me also of long-term having that. Does that make sense?
Long-term habitat is a qualifier?
Having the train. So like.
Oh, I
so
think it's
versus
long-term habitat.
Versus a building.
Uh-huh.
Versus, so as people buy the property 50, 100 years from now, and it has a train that's landmarked on it. That's just one of the things I always consider too, it's one thing to have like a structure, a house, a building, but does anyone have thoughts on that?
No, I would agree. I think the property could have more, in the future, flexible uses if property ownership changed. For that area especially, it's a larger lot. Future owners might want to do different things with it. It could certainly, because it is a train car, we move houses all the time, but it could be more easily moved than a house. And I think it just gives flexibility that gives us more flexibility in the future that we might want or need someday for that property, especially considering it's owned commercial and there's other development that'll be going on. Again, I think it's great that it's there now and probably will be there for a long time and maybe be there forever. And the property owner can certainly do all that. And the community is very behind this project. So there's other ways to preserve this for some time. But I don't agree with landmarking that structure on that location. And maybe not any location, but in this location that we're talking about now, I don't agree with landmarking it.
If it were to be approved for landmarking, does that require that it always stays in that location, or can it not be moved?
That's a good question.
So it's typically property specific. I think anything could happen with action of city council. So I would say never, but the way it's typically structured, it is, it's supposed to stay on the property where it's landmarked. Doesn't mean it has to be that way, though. There could be flexibility.
But that's just, I mean, that's going to be a big endeavor if for down the road for another commission or another property owner, or it's just, I don't know, that's just something that it's not a standard. And not that it doesn't have heartstrings and sentiment, all that stuff, but it just makes it a lot, like you said, a lot less flexible for the type of structure that it is. So that's kind
And so our concern is for a potential future use, making it easier for someone to develop that for another use.
well, and mainly just the type of structure that it is, just being a train structure versus an actual like house or building. Does that make sense? No.
Are you getting
I don't
after-
know the rules enough to know whether we can or cannot consider something that's not a structure on a foundation for historic landmarking.
Are you getting after, like, if it was a automobile that was found about the town and, I mean,
Well, no, it's not it's not
the
movable or
transient
anything.
portion, or?
No,
not
it's
so?
just, I think it's more of just, it's just non-traditional and and at some point, it just limits the property.
The property part for me is not
That's
the
not-
part where I say no still. It's just not.
That's fine. It's just,
Yeah.
I guess that's my question is like, does the HPC want to have that strong of protection over something?
Question for you is, if it came back 20 years from now, is it something you can come back in for it again and try if you've been denied once already, or I don't know that portion of it?
Could you try again? Is that what
Yeah.
you're asking?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, my vote is still no for really the same reasons I brought up before.
Was it a structure that's more traditional in your mind when it was a restaurant?
No, not for me. I mean, I think,
Because this is being looked at as a commercial
right.
application, not a residential.
And it doesn't have anything to do with the label. It's more of just
It's out of the box.
I don't want to say like, can't be out in the, but it's just
So I think historic preservation can and does extend to things beyond what I mentioned before, beyond residences, commercial buildings, things like that. We've preserved signs like the Blue Parrot sign. Those, however, are like the sign, the Blue Parrot sign, things as such are smaller in scale. For me, the hangup really is this property and future potential uses for it. So that's kind of my holdup in landmarking this, because that really restricts what can be done with the caboose itself. Likely not much else will be done with it, but really with the property and the caboose on it. So while some people will very much welcome it being landmarked, some community members, it's not every community member's vision for this city long-term, I would imagine. So that's not to say, again, it can't be there for decades potentially, with the owners backing and community backing.
And I think too, some of the confusion with the different buildings and time periods and where they came from is kind of confusing. And like there was a railroad through there that's been, like, it's just confusing. So it kind of creates like a false history of that train was never on that track. And like, there's just a lot of confusing pieces around it for me, so.
Right, I would agree. And again,
Yep.
right, one thing we talked about trying to, with additions, stay within our national criteria of different materials and setbacks. We also, within our national criteria, try to avoid creating false sense of history, which, because there's so many components, there is on the property to an extent, and that's okay. And maybe there'll be placards and things like that with help, but landmarking that false sense of history is a different story, one that I'm not as comfortable doing.
Anything else? So this is specifically for the probable cause. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just bringing us back to what we're, did you have another comment?
No.
This is for the landmark.
For the probable cause, or no, landmark, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right, I'm sorry. Landmark.
So I would like to make a motion to deny the landmark designation for the caboose.
I will second.
We'll do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
We're saying yes to deny it, or no to not deny it. I think so.
Yes to denying the landmark for the caboose.
Did I say roll call?
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Anderson,
Again, yes to denying.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Chair Haley,
Yes.
Commissioner Whidden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild.
No.
And so because we denied that, do we need to go through the grant for that one? Okay. And then the final piece of this is the probable cause for the Stein boxcar.
I would put pretty much the same portion, even less of a connection to it for me, and I really don't have a lot more else to say about it, besides I appreciate it. I like that there's a connection. I like that it was found. I like the story.
And in some ways, it has a little more connection because it kind of had pictures or that kind of thing to the mines and that kind of thing. But I still agree. I don't think we should landmark this one or have probable cause. I'm sorry.
Right. I think given our given how we feel, or just show we feel about landmarking or not landmarking, in that case the caboose, there's not much purpose for a probable cause for this, because I don't think it'd be likely it would be found to be landmarked.
And the two of them together is, again, confusing with the proximity of the two. So.
I have nothing to add.
And again, I think I just want to stress to the applicants, I wholeheartedly believe that the stories of the past are what connect us to our future, and that Louisville really prides that so deeply, and that all the stories that were told tonight about this whole process are wonderful and inspiring in so many ways, including how this was moved and how you found it, through aerial, footage, and that the previous owner or person who had on the property donated. This is all wonderful and adds a lot to your ownership of that property and love for that property and many community members' appreciation. So those are all wins for the community having that all there.
I'd like to make a motion to deny probable cause for Steinbach car.
I'll second.
And we'll do another roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner
That was a
Berg,
weird one.
Yes.
Chair Haley,
Yes.
Commissioner Whidden,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt.
No.
All right. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate your passion and just the
Agreed.
thoroughness. And we look forward to working with you for the project that you have going on. So if you have any questions for us or for staff, feel free to reach out. So thank you.
Just as a point of order, closing the public invited to be heard before the public was being heard. I just have not a debate. I don't want to add about a minute and a half of a question on a debate. Just as a point of equal time. Is that? Well, I'm sorry.
Is it relevant, so here's a question, and I know, is it relevant to the historic preservation application at hand?
Yes.
So unfortunately, all the decisions have been made. I think if you want to get something on the record, give me a second to, let's take a recess if we can and talk about this, talk about different options, okay?
It's fine.
Okay.
Talk to staff in the recess. Thank you.
zoning is just gonna encroach too much on his property.
It sounds like technically it should be 20 feet. Okay. And I guess to just,
I'm going to pool my time, but I'll try to keep it within 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But
and I
just
guess,
want,
well, I was going to say too, I apologize. And I think part of the public, having public, it was more of the applicant was coming back up. Like we've had that where the applicant comes back up to answer specific questions or something. So I apologize for that confusion because we said it was public comment, but it was more of the applicant was coming up. So I'm sorry
and I understand
for that.
that.
So go ahead. We're
I
good.
sat on the Parks and Recreation Board
Totally
for 3
fine. I just
years
wanted to
as the
clarify,
chair.
we weren't trying to be like
I know you
unfair or
weren't.
fair, but it was more of just, we weren't actually opening up, but we just said that. So go ahead, you're
I
good.
didn't take it that way.
Yep, go for
So
it.
since I do have a little bit of time,
Yep.
the Tajikistan house was brought up. I worked a career with the city of Boulder and was involved with actually storing that at the water treatment plant and then getting about 20 craftsmen from Tajikistan to come over and reassemble it. So that was a really incredible project. I think my point in saying that is I am 100% supportive of this project in its historical value as whatever staff suggestion, what you guys find appropriate. So that's what I'm saying. What I'm talking about here is just this, that Resolution 17, Series 2, 19, Section 11 says to preserve the setbacks. So I wanted some clarification. And as much as anything, I was hoping to have some clarification to council too, because a lot of this stuff gets mixed in the, or gets lost in the communication. And that's why I'm here now, so it'll be a part of the minutes. But I not to open that part up again, but I was hoping to have some clarification that you could pass along to council that stated, we approve this based on the resolution 17-209-76, which specifically says to preserve the setbacks, and that we've had an adjacent property come in here that would also like the setbacks preserved. I completely understand it's not you to give that. You're giving that recommendation to council to approve it, but it sure gives some guidance, just like you're getting on these approvals. It sure gives some guidance to council to scratch their head and say, yeah, they're asking for a 5-foot, says to preserve the setbacks. The commissioners are saying to be cognizant of that, because I think a lot of this kind of flew through pretty quickly too. And even though the applicant has months and maybe dozens, if not hundreds of hours with staff, we've got 3, 6, now 9 minutes, maybe another 3 minutes to try to explain what's going on here. So as Rob had said, I'm not here to, have this big conversation thing, but I'm hoping that after I'm done here in 27 seconds or 3 minutes and 27 seconds, I'm hoping that you can have a discussion and at least give me some guidance and maybe council some guidance or even clarification that this was approved under the guidelines of the Haven new construction request recommendation and then the analysis of Resolution 17 Series 219, which states that as part of this approval, we limit to 2 stories, we construct with the mass, and we preserve the setbacks. And I don't need to go another 3 minutes. Thank you very much. And thank you both staff for giving me the chance to speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. And I think we were pretty clear that we were not in favor of allowing setbacks in our.
That was not
So-
part of the approval. And
Right.
as my understanding would be that if you go in for a PUD, at the time you go in for a PUD, they have to have, again, another hearing on it. You usually have to post for public comment, all that sort of stuff.
So
And
that's all-
and I would say
That's
you've
all
heard
we-
the additional
that's all we were
comment,
saying.
but I
Yep,
would
we're-
recommend that you don't have any further deliberations.
We were just, yep, all right. So next is our work plan and subcommittee updates.
Okay, this is just our standard placeholder here. So I'll go through these pretty quickly. I think we have a good understanding of what's going on in the background just based on your emails to me over the last month, but it'd be good to update the Greater Commission. So the first one is the grant program update, which is my item. Still on track to have a draft resolution back to you at the next meeting in October. Then I'll jump to the online map subcommittee, which is Josh and Linda.
Linda, maybe I'll take it offline with you at another point, but
Yeah.
I'd like to just kind of get in front of you and ask your opinion on a couple things at some point in the next
great.
month,
Anytime.
if that works. Okay.
Yep, that's great.
Okay. The Old Town walking tour and that subcommittee, Sloan and Linda.
I don't have anything new to report. We did an update at the last meeting
Okay.
that covered everything so far.
Great, thank you. The updated brochure and flyer, Sloan and Marty.
We have a meeting booked with the in-house communications team in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, on
to
September 30th.
All of that, so.
And then the events subcommittee, this committee was at the farmer's market on August 23rd. Maybe a little update on that would be nice. I know this was your last event of the year.
That was the last event, and it was rainy, and we still got quite a few people stopping by. I think we ended up with a list with 3 or 4 potential people on there. I do have a question as far as that list with the names of people who are showing some interest. Have they been contacted, or is staff going to be contacting them?
Yeah, so the chair requested I contact 2 regarding a potential purchase. And so I did send out just a very general email, just introducing myself. And if they have any questions about the program, I'm available. I didn't mention that. And then I'll have that list for future outreach as well, along with another list you provided me earlier this year, unless there's specific communication you'd like me to do with that list at this point.
Just to make sure that people stop by, talk to us, and ask, put on a list for communication if they are getting the communication.
Yeah, we'll keep that for outreach coming up in the new year, specifically regarding the grant program update. Am I good to move on to the
I'm
staff
sorry,
updates?
yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So there was one alteration certificate approved by subcommittee, and this was at 928 Lafarge Avenue, and this was just for deck and door materials. I'd sent out an email last week for the city to maintain the certified local government status. At least one commissioner needs to take a training, and I'd sent a list of some options that are available over the month of September. A lot of them required extensive time and travel. There was one I was hoping someone could volunteer for if any of you are available. It's on September 25th and it's at 11 a.m. It's a 1.5-hour webinar, and that would help tick that box for our CLG requirement because the report is due on November 2nd.
I can do it.
Okay, thank you, Sloan. I'll be in touch with you about registering because there's a $15 fee that we can pay for. And then the next regular meeting is on October 18th at 6:30 p.m.
I think the 18th is a Saturday.
Oh, no.
I think it might be the 20th.
I may have messed up the date. Does anyone have a calendar for the third Monday in October?
Yeah, I think it's the 20th.
Should be the 20th.
It's the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. October 20th is the next regular meeting.
I was gonna say, one of the homes on Front Street that is for sale is on the National Register again. So, that's something that was brought to our attention, and two of the people that came by our booth were interested in like possibly buying a property, and they'd both heard or seen about that one. So that was why we kind of reached out just to see. But that's just something to be aware of. And then also the Cultural Service Department is doing their 150 commemorations for 2026. So the museum is working on kind of collecting some ideas. So just be aware of that. And if you want to be involved, there's some potential for that.
I'll be attending the
Okay.
Museum Advisory Board meeting
Awesome.
on Wednesday.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'll bring back more information.
Okay. Let us know.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from commissioners? All right. All right. Our last item is to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.